In a world flooded with political theater and hollow speeches, one man walked into the heart of global diplomacy and didn't just speak, he made history stop. Ibrahim Traoré didn't come to negotiate. He came to deliver a reckoning. I am Ibrahim Traoré, and today ... I strip away your masks. The hall had seen its share of declarations, disputes, and diplomatic rituals. It had heard world leaders preach peace while planning invasions. It had witnessed smiles that concealed sanctions and applause that rang hollow. But this moment? This was different. There was no ceremony, no formal build-up, no music swelling to introduce greatness. No media hint, no leak, no whisper. Just the sudden stillness of anticipation as the president of Burkina Faso rose quietly from his seat. He wore his full military uniform not out of vanity, but as a symbol of who he was, what he had endured, and the continent he represented. As he walked calmly toward the podium at the International Assembly, the room didn't quite know what to make of him. Some looked away, others leaned in. But no one spoke, and then the silence grew heavy. He didn't glance at his notes. No speechwriters stood behind the curtain. No aide whispered instructions into his ear. Just a man, fully present, facing down a chamber that had too long overlooked the truths he was about to speak. He looked straight ahead, his voice composed but unmistakably firm. It wasn't always this way, he began, but now it ends. The stillness was pierced. To those who still believe Africa is passive, I say, that Africa is gone, that silence has ended. And this, he said, his gaze sweeping the room, this is your final warning. The air seemed to crack under the weight of those words. Every diplomat in the hall, seasoned and slick, suddenly looked less certain. Some smirked, not yet understanding. Others stiffened. But all turned their eyes to one man seated directly across the chamber. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Traoré didn't waver. He didn't blink. He turned squarely toward Netanyahu and spoke again. You have crossed boundaries, he said. You've ridiculed borders. You've mocked our sovereignty, and you've acted with unchecked arrogance. Gasps fluttered in whispers. Netanyahu sat motionless. You believed no one was watching, Traoré continued. But now you will face those prepared to respond. A thunderbolt in a hushed room. The words were simple, but their weight was historic. He paused. No one moved. Security personnel pressed their fingers to earpieces. Delegates shifted in their seats. Some scribbled notes. Others simply stared. Let me make myself absolutely clear, he said slowly, his voice a controlled fire. The next act of aggression toward African dignity will not be met with resolutions or carefully worded statements. You will be met with unity, and unity is more dangerous than weapons. That line struck the room like a blow. Western diplomats leaned toward each other. Israeli aides scribbled furiously. Around the edges of the assembly, murmurs began to bubble, but no one dared interrupt, because deep down, they knew they were hearing something they'd ignored for too long, and he wasn't finished. You still imagine Africa as broken, divided, desperate, and dependent. That image serves you well, doesn't it? He said, a quiet fury rising beneath his words. But you failed to see the shift. You missed the moment the ground moved beneath your feet. The new Africa does not ask for permission. The new Africa demands respect. A visible chill ran through the room. The South African delegate leaned forward, stunned. A Nigerian official nodded silently. Even long-jaded French diplomats stopped writing and simply watched. This is not a request, Traoré added. It's a reality you must now confront. The days of exploitation, manipulation, and quiet compliance, those days are over. The strength in his voice didn't come from anger alone. It came from generations of pain, from centuries of resistance, from an Africa that had seen empires come and go and was still here. We will no longer allow African land to be used as a chessboard for your strategies. We will no longer allow our people to be statistics in your geopolitical games. By now, phones across the room buzzed with live alerts. Live streams were breaking records. Journalists raced to clip the footage. Within minutes, the speech would be on every screen across the African continent. And they were listening, from Dar es Salaam to Dakar, From Lagos to Lusaka, young people began posting videos, shaking with pride. Professors hailed it as the boldest act of diplomatic resistance in decades. Social media lit up with hashtags. Hashtag Africa Rises, hashtag Final Warning, hashtag Traoré, or Acute speaks for us all, even in Europe. Where African resistance is often filtered, state-run broadcasters aired segments with thinly disguised awe. One British political analyst, normally reserved, said on live television, "This wasn't a speech. It was a rupture. It changes everything." Israel, for its part, responded with a deafening silence. No press conference, no tweet. No rebuttal. Just a quiet leak from within Netanyahu's office describing the moment as a dangerous shift in African alignment. Behind closed doors, however, the tremors were spreading fast. Intelligence briefs warned Western capitals. This wasn't just rhetorical fire. This was political repositioning. Military alliances were being redrawn. Trade policies were being reevaluated. What had once been ignored was now impossible to overlook. At home in Burkina Faso, Traoré returned not to fireworks or fanfare, but to a nation transformed. Veterans stood at attention as he passed. Elders came to his office bearing prayers and proverbs. Youths danced in the streets, waving flags and chanting his name. Local musicians remixed the speech into songs. The colors of Africa were flying higher than ever, but inside his office, the man who shook the world remained calm. No champagne, no tweets, no smiling selfies. Just quiet resolve. A local journalist, hesitant but compelled, asked him, "Why now, President? Why issue the warning at this moment?" Traoré didn't hesitate. "Because I've seen enough," he said. Because silence was beginning to look like consent, and because Africa deserves better. And with that, he moved on to his next meeting. Meanwhile, panic subtle but real spread through the corridors of former colonial powers. In Paris, urgent diplomatic memos were circulated. France quietly launched an internal audit of its African policies. In Washington, the State Department requested confidential intelligence briefings on emerging African military blocs. In Tel Aviv, a high-ranking Israeli analyst reportedly warned Netanyahu directly, "Do not underestimate this man. He's not bluffing." And yet, Traoré offered no follow-up. No victory lap. He didn't post another sentence, didn't call another press conference. He had said what he came to say. And as he left the assembly chamber, his final words lingered in the minds of all who heard them. When a man has spoken his final words, he does not repeat them. He acts. Now it's your turn. Do you support Traoré's final warning? Drop a comment below and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Your voice matters. And this time, the world is actually listening. Don't forget to subscribe to Traoré Uprising, because these are the stories the mainstream media won't dare to tell. Africa is not waiting anymore. And silence is no longer an option.